do something you're very passionate about. And don't try to chase what is kind of the hot passion of the day. I go to bed early, I get up early, I like to putter in the mornings. I like to read the newspaper, I like to have coffee, I like to have breakfast with my kids before they go to school. So I have my kind of puttering time is very important to me. And so that's why I set my first meeting for 10 o'clock. I like to do my high IQ meetings before lunch. Like anything that's going to be really mentally challenging, that's a 10 o'clock meeting. And because by 5 p.m., I'm like, I can't think about that today. Let's try this again tomorrow at 10 a.m. And so then on sleep, I get 8 hours of sleep. I prioritize it. Unless I'm traveling in different time zones, sometimes it's impossible, but I am very focused on it. And for me, I need 8 hours of sleep. I think better. I have more energy. My mood is better, all these things. And think about it. As a senior executive, what do you really get paid to do? As a senior executive, you get paid to make a small number of high-quality decisions. Your job is not to make thousands of decisions every day. Is that really worth it if the quality of those decisions might be lower because you're tired or grouchy or any number of things? Now, it's different if it's a startup company. I mean, you're really, when Amazon was 100 people, it's a different story. But Amazon's not a startup company. And all of our senior executives operate the same way I do. They work in the future. They live in the future. None of the people who report to me should really be focused on the current quarter. I always tell people, sometimes I get, we'll have a good quarterly conference call or something, and Wall Street will like our quarterly results, and people will stop me and say, congratulations on your quarter, and I say, thank you. But what I'm really thinking is, that quarter was baked 3 years ago. Right now, I'm working on a quarter that's going to reveal itself in 2021 sometime. And that's what you need to be doing. You need to be out sort of, 2 or 3 years in advance.
I'm Jeff Bezos.
And what is your claim to fame?
I'm the founder of Amazon.com.
Where did you get an idea for Amazon.com?
Well, 3 years ago, I was in New York City working for a quantitative hedge fund when I came across the startling statistic that web usage was growing at 2,300% a year. So I decided I would try and find a business plan that made sense in the context of that growth. And I picked books as the first best product to sell online, after making a list of like 20 different products that you might be able to sell. And books were great as the first best, because books are incredibly unusual in one respect, and that is that there are more items in the book category than there are items in any other category by far. Music is number 2. There are about 200,000 active music CDs at any given time. But in the book space, there are more than 3 million different books worldwide active and in print at any given time across all languages. More than 1.5 million in English alone. So when you have that many items, you can literally build a store online that couldn't exist any other way. And that's important right now because the web is still an infant technology. Basically right now, if you can do things using a more traditional method, you probably should do them using the more traditional method.
What kind of inventory do you keep?
We inventory the best-selling books. At any given time, we're inventorying in our own warehouse only a couple of thousand titles. And then we do almost in-time inventory for another 400,000 titles or so. We get those from a network of we order electronically from a network of wholesalers and distributors. We order those today. They're on our loading dock the next morning. Then for another 1.1 million titles, we get those directly from 20,000 different publishers, and those can take a couple of weeks to get. And then there are 1 million out-of-print books in our catalog. We have a catalog of 2.5 million books altogether. Those 1 million out-of-print books, some of them we can get and some of them we can't, but we find them if we can, and then we ship them to our customers. We do kind of a search on those.
What's almost-in-time inventory?
Almost-in-time inventory is the phrase we use to describe a whole selection of books that we offer. It's basically the things that are, below the 2,000th best-selling book up to the 400,000th best-selling book. Those are titles that we can get from a network of more than a dozen different wholesalers. So if a customer orders a book from us today, we order that book from our wholesalers today, and that book shows up on our loading dock the next morning. And then we can ship it to the customer.
They say one of the toughest things to do on the internet is to capture mind share. What was your secret? How did you do that?
Yeah, even more generally, I agree with you that capturing mind share on the internet is extremely difficult. Even more generally, it's the late 20th century, not just the internet. Capturing attention. Attention is the scarce commodity of the late 20th century. And one of the ways that you can do that, and it's the way that we did it, was by doing something new and innovative for the first time that actually has real value for the customer. That's a hard thing to do, but if you do that, then newspapers will write about what you're doing. Customers will tell other customers, and you'll get a huge sort of word-of-mouth fan-out. And that can really drive and accelerate businesses. And that's what happened with us. In the first year of opening Amazon.com to the public, we didn't do any paid advertising. And all of our growth was fueled by word-of-mouth and media exposure.
I saw little ads at the bottom of the column of the New York Times.
That was our very first advertising. We don't do that anymore, but at the very beginning, we did little tiny ads at the bottom of the front page of the New York Times.
What was hard for me is deciding to work hard, deciding to use my gifts in certain ways, to challenge myself, to do things that I didn't think I could do, to put myself in uncomfortable situations. We all I would say to a young person, you can choose a life of ease and comfort, or you can choose a life of service and adventure. Which one of those, when you're 90 years old, are you going to be more proud of? In my business dealings at Amazon, we often buy companies, smaller companies, smaller than Amazon, but sometimes they're fairly large companies like Whole Foods, but oftentimes they're very small companies. And I'm really mainly looking for one thing when I'm talking to the senior leaders of those companies, and it's, are they missionaries or are they mercenaries? Because the missionaries build better products and services, they care for their customers more. The mercenaries are trying to make a quick buck, they're trying to flip this company and sell it. They built it for sale. They always wanted to sell it, they want to get rid of it. And those companies aren't built to last. So that's the main thing I thought about when I saw these people on stage tonight, all the award winners, and I think it's probably true for everybody who goes into government service and takes that service seriously. You do that because it's a mission. And if the people in government service could easily make more money in the private sector. They're not doing it for that. They're doing it because they're getting meaning from it. And I tell my kids, you can have a job, you can have a career, or you can have a calling. And you want the calling, whatever that is, because that is when you're, 80 or 90 years old and in a quiet moment of reflection, telling yourself your most intimate version of your life story. What do you want to have? You want to have meaning. If you can have that entrepreneurial spirit and heart, while at the same time having all the advantages that come with scale and scope, think of the things that you could do. And so the question is, how do you achieve that? The scale is good because it makes you robust. A big boxer can take a punch to the head. The question is, you also want to dodge those punches. So you'd like to be nimble. You want to be big and nimble. It's really hard to know what Amazon will look like 20 years from now because so many things change. You can't really base a strategy on a technology or who your competitors are, or those things change so quickly. But the one thing that I think you can really count on in any field of endeavor is your customers and what their needs are. And so those are the things, when you want to build a strategy, you want to think about what is going to be stable in time rather than what's going to be different. And I know that customers 20 years from now are still going to want low prices. I know they're still going to want fast delivery. I know they're still going to want vast selection. It's impossible for me to imagine a world 20 years from now where a customer comes up to me and says, Jeff, I love Amazon. I just wish your prices were a little higher. Or, I love Amazon. I just wish you delivered a little more slowly. Those things are impossible to imagine. And so you can actually build a real a set of activities, and you can pump energy into those things, and you can spin up the flywheel on all those things because you can count on them being true even 20 years from now.
So I've heard you describe innovation as a team sport. What kind of people do you want on your team?
Well, for innovate, you need a bunch of different kinds of people on a team. We need lots of operators on our team. So innovation comes in two major flavors. Everyday incremental innovation, and that's probably 70% of what we do, is just getting every little process a little bit better every day. That's so important. Any company that doesn't do that well is not going to succeed. And then there's this big, kind of white sheet innovation when you start something new. For that kind of innovation, in real invention, kind of clean sheet invention, you need people who, and this is very tricky, you need people who are experts in a certain domain area, because the world is so complex today. It's really hard to invent something if you're not an expert, if you don't have the underlying tools at your disposal and know what's going on. You can't invent something in neurosurgery without knowing something about neurosurgery.